It's the Kyle Hyman Show on Redeemer Radio.
This is Kyle Hyman, and joining us to talk about Make My Life Simple, which is her book, Bringing Peace to Heart and Home, is Rachel Balducci. Thanks for being here, Rachel.
Thanks for having me, Kyle.
Can you explain your family situation and what things are like at home and maybe the age range of your kids?
Sure. So I'm a wife and a mom, and we have 6 kids. The first 5 are boys, and our daughter is the youngest, so she's 8. Now we've got a lot of teenage boys and older, so we've got an 11-year-old and then 16, 18, 20, and 21. So now we've got 3 in college. Crazy, it's just hard for me to believe.
Yeah. So with all the boys, what's the most typical boy mom thing that's happened in your family this week?
This week, lots of laundry. Oh, this is the best story. My husband was telling me, I'm thinking like basketball laundry. I've got a year-round swimmer. But so this is like the new thing with bigger kids. My husband was up last night. We had a son working on a big English project. I had gone to bed. And he was up at probably midnight, and all of a sudden the door opens, and it's our college sophomore walks in with a couple of his friends here to catch the last part of a game that's like a West Coast game. We're down here in Georgia. So we're talking midnight. So he stays up and watches part of the game with them. They get up to leave. Now we're talking like 12:31, and my husband's like, okay, so you guys, head home. Oh, we'll be back. It was, some kind of break. Went out, got a bunch of fast food, came back, this big pack of guys watching some NBA game or baseball. I don't even know what game they were watching. It's like, so that's the new crazy season for me with bigger kids, is people just come and going at crazy hours that if my kids were little, I would be judging so hard a woman who's like, why would you allow people to come and go at such a crazy hour? And then your kids get bigger and you're like, because this is what they do, and it's like, it's just part of the deal right now.
Something for me to look forward to. It's good to have the heads up on some of these things.
Yeah.
And you've written a lot, and you've got books out about life with all the boys in your house. I love your blog is Testosterone Home. And
yes.
The new book, though, Make My Life Simple, takes kind of a different approach. So how was it writing about the female life and perspective and maybe some of the needs that you address in your book?
Sure. It was really a wonderful experience to write about this. So my first book, like you said, was all about life with boys, and that came directly out of starting a blog, which came directly out of my need to survive emotionally when I had a house full of little boys. I say a lot, motherhood didn't look like what I thought it was going to look like. And I think women everywhere end up saying that at some point. For me, I just didn't expect to have 4 boys in 5 years, And so it's like, all of a sudden, it's like life is just insane. And my former perfectionist self is that's getting chipped away from me. And in the meantime, I started a blog. I'm a former newspaper reporter, and writing became my therapy because I realized, I'm either going to laugh at the end of every day or cry, and probably a mixture of both. And so the writing really helped me kind of work through, catching somebody contemplating jumping, off of the garage roof with a laundry bag, thinking he could maybe fly, that sort of thing,
sure.
Like that level all the time. So I loved that because I heard from so many women that were like, oh my gosh, thank you. This helps me think my kids aren't crazy. So I loved writing that book because it was really just a sweet little, love note to life with boys. This book is so much more of the heart of me as just a person and the many parts of who I am as a wife, as a mom, as a daughter of God, as somebody trying to be holy, and all of those things together. And then, the practical part of each one of those parts of me and the spiritual part. And so it really just came from the gut of me. This is stuff I'm thinking about. I'm trying to balance a whole lot of things. I'd like to do it with a little bit of finesse, if possible, not perfection, but enough order in my life to really enjoy my life, all the different parts of it. So totally different place, except both books are indicative of where I'm at in life when I wrote each book.
Yeah. And so whenever you talk about your simple life, what do you mean by simple? What does simple mean to you?
Yeah, so simplicity is really this concept of looking at all the different things I have going on and figuring out how to make each one of those things simple. I mean, like a streamlined approach to doing these things. So, as a mom of 6 kids, food is a big part of what we have going on, especially with boys. It's funny. Yeah. For a while, one boy would text me at lunch at school to know what we were having for dinner that night. Like, he just wanted a heads up on things,
Living from meal to meal.
Exactly. Yeah. What do I have to look forward to today? So it's like, and as somebody who, like, cooking is not the first thing that I want to be doing, ironically, with all these sons, that was an area of my life that I thought, it's here to stay. Me providing food for people is here. And I need to figure out a way to make that work peacefully instead of waiting till 5:30 every night and saying, okay, what's for dinner? And then apply that to all the different areas, like personal care, all the ways that we need to take care of ourselves personally with eating good and exercise and, getting our eyebrows waxed, which is something women should, some women kind of need to do. And it sounds dumb, but let me tell you something, Kyle. The times that I try to ignore certain things because I think I don't have time for it, or it's a waste of time, or it's not a holy thing for me to think about, what I end up doing is every time I look in the mirror, I'm spending all this time trying to figure out what the heck's going on with those eyebrows, Then you go get them taken care of, and it's like, oh, I don't even have to think about this for another 6 weeks. That's sort of the heart of what I'm talking about, is you do the right thing with the right amount of time and the right amount of energy, and then it doesn't have to be a thing that takes up your time and energy. So, make a menu, have a good system for your laundry, and those are all things that will bring you a lot of peace when you have a real basic, simple approach to handling each one of those.
We're talking with Rachel Balducci. The book is Make My Life Simple, and talking about simplifying things. In what ways do you think that we overcomplicate things, or why are we attracted to the complexities sometimes, you think?
I think it's really just a matter of, because we don't want to have to deal with stuff until we have to deal with it. And then if you put things off until the last minute, till some fire is raging in some certain area, I didn't think about the laundry, and now somebody has a basketball game and here's their jersey underneath. And so you're scrambling and running around. And I think the problem is we sometimes think, well, I'm going to just think about the thing right here in front of me, which is a good way to be. It's good to be focused. But if you're 10 steps behind all the time, then it just causes problems for you. It's like trying to get out the door to go do some wonderful thing, but you have no idea where the keys are. And I think a lot of people have had that experience and maybe don't live that way day to day, but you can apply so many other things that we deal with in life down to that. Where do the keys belong? Well, I know right where they are because that's where I put them. And we can do that with so many other sort of systems. And then spiritually, there's a lot of that too. And I talk about that in the book. The book is broken down into 3 parts. There's this practical, things like laundry, menu, cleaning the house, how to keep it tidy, how to train your kids to do that stuff. And then there's personal things like the eyebrows. And as a mom, taking care of myself because it's so much easier to put the kids first. And then finally, there's spiritual. And that's all the baggage that we carry that keeps us from God, our opinions, our wounds, our view of our life and ourselves, and learning to simplify in that area too can bring us so much peace and joy.
And that order of things, going from in your home to in yourself to in your spiritual life, that's the order that you break it down in the book. Is there a strategy to that, or you kind of it's going from outward to more inward maybe, versus doing it in the opposite order?
Yeah, and so what happens is when you get to the end of the book, it's like that directly links back to the beginning of the book. So it's like you could really start with one or the other. I see it just as this nice big circle because really, yes, the most important is our interior life. But a lot of times for women in particular, but maybe for men too, it's hard to sit down and get settled and all of a sudden just have this sense of peace and a desire to really connect with God and spend time in prayer. If we look up from our meditation journal or our Bible or just from closing our eyes and everything around us is chaos, And so you can start with the internal and work out, or you can start with the outward and work in. But it's all this cycle that just ties in one with the other. The more peace we have in our practical life, the more peace that brings us in our spiritual life within ourselves. And again, not that like I can only pray if my house is totally clean and the laundry's caught up, but that I have this sense, of a mission with, I know how to handle my day today. Like I'm not waking up and just being like, how the heck am I going to deal with all this crazy today? It's this sense of like, I'm going to start with making my bed, and then I'm going to take care of the people that God has asked me to take care of, which is my kids. And if my kids are big, then it's whoever else God is putting in my path. And having a system for all the other little things, because honestly, the laundry is a little thing. But I think very few women would say that because it feels like an epically huge thing, or, whatever it is that we might personally struggle with. So this sense of order is really about just giving the right amount of time and energy to the right thing so that we have the freedom to really say, okay, I've got that under control. What next, Lord? Let me be your hands and feet today. What can I do to serve you today?
So as you're describing all this, I know there's some people that couldn't even wait for the plug. They've already done a Google search and they've ordered the book because they're like, I have to get this. For somebody who says like, oh, I don't think I need to simplify my life. I think I've got things in pretty good order. Do you think there might be people that are in that situation, or do you think they're just blind to the need to be more simple?
I think that simplicity it's a really personal thing, and I talk about this a lot in the book. The whole time I was writing this, and I've had lots of conversations over the years with friends who, they'll come into my home and they're like, okay, how do you keep the front room tidy like this, But I know that it's very personal. Like, I don't want anybody to read my book and think, oh, she thinks this is a one-size-fits-all, because we all have areas in our life that we're willing to give more time and energy to. And then we have areas, and I relate this to myself with in the kitchen. I'm not going to be somebody that's going to put a lot of time. I mean, I'll make nice meals for my family, but I'm not going to be somebody that's making 3 handcrafted side dishes along with an entree every night of the week. I have friends that cook that way. The world is filled with people that are like that. That's not me. And so the book is really more about shining light on the areas that we really have to give attention to, but also saying the great thing is you get to dictate how much attention you want to give it to it. And so it's really, maybe not everybody would call it simplicity. They might just call it taking care of business or whatever. Right. But really just this idea of thinking about the things that we have to do in our day and having a sense of mission. Growing up, my dad always said, prior planning prevents poor performance. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the heart of the book, is just being aware of what I have to get done within the next 12 hours, within the next 24 hours, and getting it done in a way that brings me peace. And that'll look different for everybody.
And is the book just for women?
I don't think so, but I talk about a lot of things that are important to women. My husband loved it, which was very sweet of him. He just read it. I forgot to ask him to read it while I was writing it. It was just a really, personal thing for me. Like I just sat and wrote and, did my thing and then turned it in. And kind of once it came in, I was like, oh, I never got him, I didn't just ask him to read it. And he really loved it. He found it to be inspiring as well, which is very sweet of him. But I definitely think it's something you can read and sort of apply in the different areas. Like, I don't really think dudes need to go out and get their eyebrows waxed. I just feel like that's not a good idea. And I don't want anybody to take that from reading my book. But if nothing else, to get insight into maybe all the different things that a woman goes through, even if she's not the primary person doing all of the things. I certainly don't want to make it sound like the woman is the one who has to be in charge of cleaning the house and driving the carpools. I think that typically is how it works, but I know that's not across the board. But I do think as women, the home is just such an extension of who we are. Now I'm a college professor now, and my kids are in school full time, and I just teach a few days a week, but I still see the house and home as my primary gig. Like, my heart is here in doing that. So, that might seem a little different for men, but really the concept of operating in a way that brings us peace, that at the heart of it is not just for the joy of having a clean house, but to move past all that and to really hear God's voice and, grow closer to Him, because we aren't living in a state of frenzy and chaos.
Yeah. All right. Well, where should we send people to learn more about you and the work that you're doing, your blogging, and get a copy of the book?
Thanks. The book is at our Sunday Visitor. It's also on Amazon. Just look up Rachel Balducci. And also you can find me at rachelbalducci.com. And then my blog that started it all, testosterhome.net.
All right. And Balducci is spelled Balducci. And the book, again, is called Make My Life Simple, Bringing Peace to Heart and Home. Thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing it with us. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Kyle.